Welcome to the S&D 50 College Football Show. Today we recap the 2025 season. We deep dive on all 934 games and pull out the most interesting information. For those that are new, this is a show that performance rates all 136 college football teams. Spencer, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Drew?
I am doing dandy.
It was a lot to get this show together, but it's worth it. There's some cool stuff that we learned ourselves.
Jacob, welcome in. How are you?
There wouldn't be anywhere else I'd rather be right now than sitting here getting ready to talk about the 2025 season recap with stats that nobody else is talking about.
For those that are new here, if you want hyper-focused, bias-free college football content, please subscribe. We are grateful for every single one of you who have already subscribed. Share this with your friends. We love bringing you this content. Today's episode, we will recap least competitive games, most competitive games, least improved teams, most improved teams, teams that were in the S&D 50 all season, teams that almost made the S&D 50.
We're not just talking about Indiana or Miami. We're to talk about everyone from Eastern Michigan to Tarleton State.
Let's jump right into it. The 10 least competitive games between Power 4 opponents. At number 10, on November 15th, Central Florida loses to Texas Tech 48-9. The competitive rating, a 20.2. And this competitive rating is the S&D 50's competitive rating, which measures all 60 minutes equally.
This metric can be used as sort of a proxy for, well, competitiveness. It takes into account how fast you score and how well you hold your opponent to low scores. As you can see here, this game, not very competitive, and yet this is the 10th least competitive game that we saw between two P4 opponents this year.
At number 9, on November 1st, Arizona beats Colorado 52-17 with a competitive rating of 18.8.
On the road, no less.
On October 4th, Boston College gets bludgeoned by Pitt 48-7, competitive rating 18.2.
Pitt did to Boston College what Georgia Tech could not do to them.
On November 29th, Texas Tech shows up again. They beat West Virginia to close the season 49-0. The competitive rating a 4.8. Mind you, a competitive game is what, Spencer?
Competitive game is a game with about a 70 to 75, we would say is mildly competitive. Anything above like an 80 is a very competitive game.
So a 4.8, very unwatchable.
That is hard football to watch, unless you're a Texas Tech fan.
And you just clinched a Big 12 title spot. You probably watched it. At number 6, October 25th, UCLA loses to the national champions, Indiana, 56-6. Same competitive rating, Spencer, 4.8.
Yeah, and this one was interesting too because if you remember, the commentary in the lead up to this game was, whoa, UCLA just dispatched Penn State. Could they do the same to Indiana? Well, that did not pan out.
Wasn't that a big noon game?
I think it was.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State on October 25th loses to Texas Tech again. Texas Tech shows up here 42-0. Competitive rating 4.6.
Yeah, we didn't do a most dominant within their conference rating, but if we did, I think Texas Tech would take the cake.
This is why everyone was so high on Texas Tech going into the playoffs. Look at what they were doing to teams in the Big 12. And it was just such a shock to see Baron Morton come out and forget how to throw the football.
It's a good point. At number 4, Colorado loses to Utah 53-7. The competitive rating, a negative 2.4. Holy cannoli.
It's basically a negative competitive rating means the game was so uncompetitive, so lopsided that it basically broke our model.
On October 18th, Oregon beats Rutgers 56-10, competitive rating -3. At number 2, Oklahoma State again appears. They lost to Oregon 69-3, competitive rating of -4.2. People were optimistic that Oklahoma State could be good at this point in the season. That hope was squashed with this loss.
If by people you mean Mike Gundy was optimistic, I think he said some fighting words that Dan Lanning did not appreciate.
Dan took it personally, clearly. And at number 1, Syracuse loses to Notre Dame 70-7 with a competitive rating of -40.2.
This game was like Notre Dame's audition without a better opponent to play to say we do deserve to be in the playoff. Look at how badly we can beat even a Power 4 opponent. And yeah, Syracuse ended the year at 121. Not a great rating, but they dispatched them in a more forceful way than anyone did to anyone else in the power conferences all year.
Let's go to our most competitive games between two Power 4 opponents. At number 10, September 20th, Arizona State beats Baylor 27-24, the competitive rating a 93.8. Number 9, September 19th, Iowa beats Rutgers 38-28, competitive rating of 94.4, which is shocking considering where Iowa ended and where Rutgers appeared on the previous slide. At number 8, Cal beats Louisville 29-26, competitive rating 95.0. This game went to overtime and all but ruined Louisville's hopes of an ACC title berth.
Ruined Louisville's hopes of an ACC title berth. And this was the game that kind of cracked the ACC wide open, if you look back. And this is what opened the door to Duke, was Cal beating Louisville in this game.
At number 7, on November 29th, LSU loses to Oklahoma 17-13. That competitive rating, 95.4. On October 18th, the number 6 most competitive game, Texas beats Kentucky 16-13. Competitive rating of 95.4. This is when people are starting to get nervous about Texas.
Yeah, this was a game that Texas should have run away with. It was a road game, their first of 2 in a row that were real nail biters. They turned it around against Vanderbilt a couple weeks later, but this was like you said, this was a real wake-up call moment, and it took them 2 weeks to figure that out on their own staff.
At number 5, Colorado loses to TCU 35-21, competitive rating of 95.6. So either Colorado gets their doors blown off or they play TCU super well on the road.
Yeah, this was about their last game that they played well, though. The whole season unraveled after that.
At number 4, Boston College loses to Michigan State 42-40. I watched this game. It was fantastic. Back and forth, tons of scoring. Neither team ended the season how they wanted to, but on September 6th, this game on NBC, fun to watch.
You know what? That's kind of that's what we go for on this show. We're not just about the big names playing big games. We love the middling teams. I mean, we're still just showing P4 versus P4. We love a good football game regardless of who the two sides are.
The number 3 most competitive game, Iowa State, Kansas State. In Ireland, competitive rating 98.2.
Farmageddon in Ireland just didn't do it for me, but it was a really fun game.
And number 2, Virginia, North Carolina. Virginia squandered its shot at a CFP opportunity. North Carolina, one of the lowest ranked Power 4 teams all season. Yet, North Carolina only loses by 1 point, competitive rating 99.8. This is shocking. Shocking to see North Carolina this high.
Well, everyone can get lucky now and then, Andrew.
Well, that's true. There's
Even
more Virginia
Freddie
to come.
Kitchens, the offensive coordinator at North Carolina, can manage to put up 16 points against Virginia.
A defensive clinic by Bill. And number 1, the most competitive Power 4 versus Power 4 game this year was Missouri Vanderbilt. 17-10, competitive rating 100.6. The only bummer to this game was that the starting quarterback for Missouri, Bo Pribula, broke his leg during this game, and so it really put a damper on a very competitive game.
And honestly, if you're a Missouri fan, that put a damper on what was amounting to be a really incredible season. I mean, their only loss by the time they played was Alabama.
Least competitive Power 4 versus G5 teams, number 10, UAB, Tennessee. That score was 56-24, competitive rating 14.8. The beginning of the end for Trent Dilfer here.
Which is really unfortunate, too, because UAB had quite the upset later in the season.
Number 9, Louisiana gets beat by Missouri 52-10, competitive rating 14.0. Number 8, Missouri State loses to USC 73-13, a competitive rating of 13.2. Now, Louisiana and Missouri State both ended up making bowl games, so they turned their seasons around, but early on, this probably did not feel good if you're a fan of either of these teams.
Yeah, and it's worth noting at this point, too, that the rankings you're seeing here are the final rankings. So in these least competitive games, it is not surprising to see those teams ranked so far apart from one another.
This was Missouri State's welcome to the FBS game.
Yeah.
On the road, too. I'm pretty sure actually every single game on our least competitive list was a road game for the G5 team.
Akron, Nebraska, number 7, 68-0, competitive rating 11.4. At number 6, Sam Houston State loses to Texas 55-0, competitive rating 7.
Give me the Sam Houston State team from 2024, though. This might have been a game.
Number 5, Central Michigan, Michigan. Final score 63-3, competitive rating 6.2.
Guessing Central Michigan didn't have their backup quarterback in this one.
The inside joke here is Central Michigan had how many extra rush yards a game with their backup quarterback, Jacob?
100
Wow, per game.
per game.
At number 4, Coastal loses to South Carolina 51-7, the competitive rating 6. And if you've been with us all season, we've laughed that Coastal Carolina either wins by 50 or loses by 50. Here's an example.
Yeah, Spencer won't give any respect to James Madison if they beat Coastal Carolina by 50 because South Carolina did it.
I was going to say, I use that as like a bellwether to see how good James Madison could really be in the playoffs. Was how good were they against Coastal Carolina?
Kent State, Florida State, September 20th, number 3 least competitive game. The competitive rating, a negative 11.2 because the score was 66-10.
Which Florida State at that point, we all thought could amount to something.
Not the S&D, though. The S&D knew Florida State. I don't know.
We had them in the 40s.
Yeah, like their highest was in the 30s, I think, in the S&D. The S&D did not overreact to their wins.
At number 2, Kent State again loses to Texas Tech. Texas Tech shows up again with a win, 62-14, competitive rating, negative 12.4.
Ka-ching, ka-ching. Look at all that money coming into Kent State.
And Kent State turned it around later in the year. Just this month of September was rough.
Which, to be clear, turning around is very relative.
At number 1, the least competitive Power 4 G5 game of the 2025 season was Alabama beating Louisiana Monroe 73-0, competitive rating, negative 16.6.
And the saddest part there is we had high hopes for ULM on this show. We thought that they would be able to turn around. We just thought everyone was getting trounced by Alabama if you weren't, a P4 team.
And Alabama had revenge to take out on because they had just lost to Florida State the week prior.
Yeah.
So Louisiana Monroe just found itself in a bad spot. Our most competitive Power 4 G5 games, number 10, Ohio Rutgers, 31-34. This game was so much fun in Piscataway.
I'm sure Lucas was hurting after this loss.
Number 9, Washington State, Ole Miss, 21-24, competitive rating 85.4.
Washington State on the road nearly took down an eventual semifinal team. I mean, this game was unheralded at the time, but it was one of 2 games in a row where Washington State took it to teams that had big postseason opportunities.
At number 8, Stanford, Hawaii. Final score 23-20. Hawaii comes out the victor. Competitive rating 85.4.
And this is the first one that we're seeing where the G5 team actually won.
At number 7, Duke, UConn. Jacob, your UConn Huskies came out on top 37-34 and beat the ACC eventual champion Duke with a competitive rating of 85.6. At number 6, Washington State again loses to Virginia 22-20, competitive rating 85.8.
This is their second road game in a row against a team that went to the ACC title game. This was a good stretch for the Cougars. They just couldn't get the wins.
Jacob, was it you who told me you were locked in on this game? Colorado State, Washington, number 5 most competitive P4 G5. Competitive rating 86.2. Washington wins 38-21.
Yeah, I was locked in on this game.
Number 4, James Madison, Louisville. Little did we know this was the Jacob Spencer rivalry game of games. Competitive rating 88.8. Louisville comes out 31-30.
Don't
What do you gotta
remind me.
say? What do
Don't
you gotta
remind me.
say?
At number 3, South Florida, Florida. Where were you when you watched this game end with a walk-off field goal? This game was crazy. Competitive rating 90.0. And this is when the South Florida making the playoff talk really took off because it was the pre-Miami beatdown.
Not only the pre-Miami beatdown, it was the pre-American collapse.
At number 2, Kennesaw State, the Fighting Planks, we love them, lose to Wake Forest 10-9, competitive rating 93.8.
Missed extra point was the difference in this game.
That's insane. How wild is that? And a road game for Kennesaw State.
Kennesaw State went on to win Conference USA, and Wake Forest had one of the best seasons they've had in years, so very good game between two teams in August we had no idea about. And number 1, August 28th, Jacksonville State loses to UCF 17-10, competitive rating 101.8.
Man, we were spoiled. To open the year, I mean, 4 of the most competitive P4G5 matchups happened in the first 2 weeks of the season.
This brings us to least competitive group of 5 versus group of 5. Number 10, San Jose State, Nevada. Final score 55-10. Competitive rating 13.8. This could be a game of what was the TV rating for this game and was it on ESPN Plus?
It was almost certainly on ESPN Plus.
Number 9, East Carolina Dispatches of FAU 42-3, competitive rating 13.6. Number 8, San Diego State beats Nevada. Here's Nevada again, 44-10, competitive rating 11.8. Number 7, Akron loses to Toledo 45-3, competitive rating 11.6. At number 6, Nevada again loses to Utah State 51-14, competitive rating 10.2.
The bottom of the Mountain West was very bad. Nevada's in here 3 times, but one of the times is them putting the butt whooping on San Jose. So what does that say about San Jose?
At number 5, Old Dominion beats Georgia Southern 45-10, competitive rating 8.2. This was a game that we realized how good Old Dominion was, and we're sad that they couldn't make the Sun Belt title game because of divisions.
No, that would have been a great matchup.
At number 4, Northern Illinois beats UMass, the lowest ranked team out of all teams in college football, 45-3. At number 3, UTSA loses to South Florida 55-23 with a competitive rating of 6. Now, for future upcoming things we're going to talk about, pay attention to UTSA. When they're on the road, shellacked. When they're at home, surprising upsets. At number 2, Washington State losing to North Texas 59-10, competitive rating 4.8. Jacob, what happened?
It's a game nobody took note of because everyone had such low expectations for Washington State, but as we found out is from previous slides, they actually were a pretty good team that played well against playoff caliber teams, but North Texas it was their day. They were at the top of the American, and they showed that Eric Morris and Drew Mestemaker knew what they were doing.
The number 1 least competitive group of 5 game in 2025. Rice, UTSA. Final score 61-13, competitive rating -1.6. But where was this game played, Jacob?
In the Alamo Dome, where they pump crowd noise.
Most competitive group of 5 games. Number 10, UConn Buffalo 20-17, competitive rating 93.4. Scary one for UConn here.
Yeah, what is UConn doing getting into this game with Buffalo, a 3-point contest?
Hey, Buffalo was supposed to actually have a good season. They started off strong.
At number 9, Fresno State, Hawaii, 23-21 was the final score. Fresno State wins, competitive rating 94.6.
And if Hawaii would have won this game, I think they would have been in the Mountain West title.
Which is wild, too, because Fresno State has also been all over the board of the Mountain West. I'm pretty sure they got beat by Colorado State, maybe Colorado State's only win of conference play.
Number 8, Texas State, Arkansas State. Final score 31-30, competitive rating 94.8.
One of the many close games Texas State lost.
Their only appearance on this list, though, funnily enough, but they had several overtime games and several very close games.
Number 7, Miami of Ohio, Ohio. A rivalry game. Final score 24-20. Ohio gets the victory. Competitive rating 95.0. At number 6, Louisiana, James Madison. Final score 24-14. At number 5, Memphis, East Carolina. East Carolina wins 31-27. Competitive rating 97.4.
No one saw this one coming except the S&D.
At number 4, Eastern Michigan, Buffalo again. Buffalo gets the victory this time, 31-30, competitive rating 97.8. At number 3, San Diego State, Northern Illinois.
It's the most competitive of the week, and we thought at the time it would end up being our most competitive game of the year.
Competitive rating 101.4. At number 2, Army loses to Tulane 24-17, competitive rating 101.8.
This is an Army team that at this point already lost to Tarleton State. More on that later. And Tulane just trying to keep playoff hopes alive, and they succeeded. But this, to me, was the real sign that despite the fact that the playoff hopes were still there, Tulane's real playoff chances were not.
And number 1, the most competitive G5 versus G5 game in 2025. Missouri State, Marshall, 21-20. Missouri State wins. Competitive rating 105, Jacob.
And look at that. We talked about CUSA beating the Sun Belt in the bowl matchups this year. We got a CUSA beating the Sun Belt as the most competitive game. Missouri State announcing that they are here in the FBS and here to compete.
And Missouri State won this game the week after losing to USC 73-13. So what does that say about the resiliency of that team? This brings us to Jacob's favorite segment of the year, least competitive, most competitive, FBS versus FCS. We start with least competitive at number 10. Campbell loses to NC State 56-10. Competitive rating -6.6 to start this top 10 list.
Campbell Camels. Can you get better than that?
Cannot. At number 9, Indiana State loses to Indiana 73-0. Competitive rating -9.
There's got to be a name for this rivalry. There's got to be.
At number 8, Grambling State loses to Ohio State 70-0. Competitive rating -9.2. At number 7, East Tennessee State loses to Tennessee 72-17. Competitive rating -9.4.
You know, I look at these games. You mentioned it with Indiana State. Now we've got Tennessee, East Tennessee State. I do wonder if there's an element of rivalry in these money games.
At number 6, North Carolina A&T loses to UCF 68-7. Competitive rating -12.6. At number 5, Texas Tech, here they are again, beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 67-7. Competitive rating -17.6. At number 4, East Texas A&M. When this game was played, they didn't even have a logo on Google. Loses to Florida State 77-3. Competitive rating -20.2.
And if I'm not mistaken, Florida State was rewarded handsomely for this win. They moved up like 2 spots in the rankings.
At number 3, Alcorn State loses to Mississippi State 63-0. Competitive rating -24.8. At number 2, Northwestern State loses to Minnesota 66-0. Competitive rating -31.2. And number 1, Northwestern State, the following week loses to Cincinnati 70-0. Competitive rating -33.4.
And I just want everybody to know, I know you're asking the question, what state is Northwestern State in? It's Louisiana.
Oh, the more you know.
For the record, Northwestern State finished their season 1-11, 0-8 in conference play.
I think that there's a place for FBS, FCS matchups. I don't necessarily think that there's a place for an FCS matchup. If we're talking like Ohio State or Indiana or someone, I don't think there's a place for all three of your non-conference games to be against an FCS foe and like a Sun Belt and a CUSA bottom dweller. You can have something like this on your schedule as, I hate to say this, but like a tune-up game. There's a place for these, but certainly I think they happen way too often.
Our most competitive FBS versus FCS games, number 10. The Idaho Vandals lose to who? Washington State. Here they are again. 13-10, competitive rating 86.8.
Crucial turnovers in this game. Honestly, Idaho really should have won it. They had a shot to win it, but just had some turnovers that they couldn't overcome.
Number 9, McNeese State loses to Louisiana 34-10, competitive rating 87.2. At number 8, Tarleton State beat Army 30-27, competitive rating 87.2. This game falling to number 8 made Spencer and mine's jaw drop. We thought this would be number 1 for sure.
But, our model doesn't rate based on the upset itself. It rates based on the gameplay. Even though Tarleton State beat Army, there were 7 games more competitive than this one.
At number 7, Idaho State, New Mexico. Jacob was on this line from the jump and said that line's too high. New Mexico came out with a win 32-22, competitive rating 88.0.
Yeah, Idaho State with 2 close losses against FBS teams this year.
At number 6, Charleston Southern loses to Coastal Carolina 13-0, competitive rating 88.0.
Coastal was just so up and down, goodness.
At number 5, Holy Cross, Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois wins 19-17, competitive rating 88.4.
And Holy Cross was not good this year. Not good at all.
At number 4, Merrimack, Kent State. Kent State wins 21-17, competitive rating 89.4.
And Kent State won this game on like a kick return for a touchdown as time expired or something nearly as dramatic as that. Like this was Kent State's first win in nearly 2 calendar years. And it was to open the season against Merrimack. It was one of my personal highlights of the year.
And this highlights what you're talking about, Spencer. If you're a cellar dweller FBS team, I think it's okay to schedule some FCS opponents because you might need to get a victory.
Yeah, and Merrimack finished 4-8.
Oh
Brutal.
my gosh.
At number 3, Monmouth loses to Charlotte 42-35. Competitive rating 92.2. And number 2, Idaho again. They lose to San Jose State 31-28. Competitive rating 92.8.
Man, it just hurts me. I'm a Big Sky junkie. See, we got 3 Big Sky schools popping up here, all nearly pulling upsets, but just can't quite do it.
Here are the least competitive rivalry games in 2025. At number 10, Tulane Ole Miss. Tulane loses 45-10. I didn't even know this was a rivalry game. Spencer had to tell me it was. Competitive rating 42.8.
Played, I think, 75 times in their history. Been playing since 1893. It's not a very frequent one. It made our list.
Tulane, former SEC champs.
That's true.
Number 9, Iowa, Wisconsin. Competitive rating 39.4.
Iowa was in the mood to dismantle rivals this year.
Unless named Iowa State. At number 8, Kentucky loses to Vanderbilt 45-17, competitive rating 38.6. We don't delight in people losing their jobs, but if you make this list, your job might be in jeopardy. At number 7, another coach who ended up getting fired as not as a result of this game, but this game did not help. Tennessee beats Florida 31-11, competitive rating 38.4. At number 6, Indiana just takes that old oaken bucket and claims it as their own. They beat Purdue 56-3, competitive rating 27.2.
Kurt Signetti said in his opening speech there at the Indiana basketball game. Purdue sucks. And same with Ohio State and Michigan.
Just like that. That is exactly how it sounded.
At number 5, Iowa beats Minnesota 41-3, competitive rating 25.6.
I remember talking about this on the show at the time. We thought this would be a really good game.
No, it was not. At number 4, Illinois, Indiana, another game we thought would be a great game. Indiana dominates 63-10. This is when we should have really stamped it even more than we did at the time. That Indiana was legit. Competitive rating 24.0. At number 3, Notre Dame, Stanford. Notre Dame wins 49-20, competitive rating 23.8. Talk your talk, Pete Bavacqua. At number 2, did not know this was a rivalry. Spencer's claiming it so. Duquesne loses to Pitt 61-9. Competitive rating 14.0.
Whoa. Don't just throw down and say Spencer's claiming it so.
Spencer, this isn't basketball. This is football.
I tell you right now, I was delighted to find this rivalry on the list. This is called the City Game between Duquesne and Pittsburgh. And I love that this, because they're both in Pittsburgh. That's why it's called the City Game. So I love that this was one of 2 FCS rivalries that made its appearance on the list.
At number 1, Colgate and Syracuse, least competitive rivalry game. Didn't know it was a rivalry game. Syracuse wins 66-24, competitive rating 13.4.
I got some history for you on this one. This is my favorite one on this list too. These 2 teams have played 69 times. Guess who leads the all-time series and by how many wins?
Colgate 4.
No. I wish that would be awesome. Syracuse leads the all-time series by 2 wins. 33-31 with 5 ties over their 69 meetings.
They got some breathing room with this win.
That's right. That's right. They had some separation. Maybe it's been 75 years since Colgate last won, but still.
Most competitive rivalry games in 2025. At number 10, Central Michigan, Western Michigan. Western Michigan wins 24-21. They go on to win the MAC. Competitive rating of this game, 89.4. At number 9, Army Air Force. 2 armed forces academies always duke it out in low-scoring affairs. Competitive rating, 89.4. Army wins 20-17.
The story of Air Force's season, losing close games.
Number 8, Iowa losing to Iowa State, 16-13, competitive rating 89.9.
Yeah, this was Iowa State's pretty much the highlight of their season.
At number 7, Michigan Northwestern. I learned today this was a rivalry. Michigan won 24-22. This was a walk-off field goal at Wrigley Field, but Michigan narrowly escapes losing to Northwestern for the first time in 30-plus years. Competitive rating 90.0. At number 6, Clemson beat South Carolina 28-14. Competitive rating 91.4. This game was close till the very, very end until Clemson pulled it out late in the 4th. At number 5, South Alabama and Troy. Final score 31-24 Troy. Competitive rating 91.4. At number 4, Washington State loses to Oregon State 10-7. Competitive rating 91.8.
I mean, I still don't understand how Oregon State won this game.
At number 3, Miami of Ohio losing to Ohio 24-20. Competitive rating 95.0. At number 2, Farmageddon in Ireland. Iowa State, Kansas State. Competitive rating 98.2. Who would have thought then that was the second most competitive rivalry game we'd see all year? And number 1 most competitive rivalry game in 2025, Virginia, North Carolina. This brings us to our overall least competitive games in 2025. Number 10, Kent State, Florida State. Competitive rating, a negative 11.2. Number 9, Kent State again, losing to Texas Tech. Competitive rating, negative 12.4. Number 8, Central Florida beating North Carolina A&T. And number 7, Louisiana Monroe losing to Alabama, 73-0. Competitive rating, negative 16.6. Number 6, Arkansas Pine Bluff, Texas Tech again. Competitive rating, negative 17.6. Number 5, Florida State, East Texas A&M. Competitive rating, negative 20.2. Number 4, Mississippi State, Alcorn State. Number 3 and number 2, both Northwestern State abysmal losses to Cincinnati and Minnesota. And number 1, the least competitive game of 2025, Syracuse Notre Dame.
Somebody squeeze that orange.
Juiced.
Some of the best AI content that I saw all year was all the stuff coming out of like big news organizations too from after that game.
The most competitive games of 2025, number 10, Boston College, Michigan State. Number 9, Memphis, East Carolina. Number 8, Eastern Michigan, Buffalo. Number 7, Iowa State, Kansas State. Number 6, Virginia, North Carolina. Number 5, Missouri, Vanderbilt. Number 4, San Diego State, Northern Illinois. Number 3, Army and Tulane. Number 2, Jacksonville State, Central Florida. And the most competitive game of 2025 goes to Missouri State, Marshall.
Gotta love a first-year FBS school getting their accolades, having competitive games.
This is why we make this. All of these games, all but one, were played before November. That's why you should watch every single
For
week.
that, we are in debt to you and the SND for identifying it.
Largest single game decreases. Number 10, Fresno State's loss to Colorado State, 49-21. They lost 389 rating points. Dropped 41 spots in the S&D 50 rankings.
And that was that weird game where Colorado State actually looked good for once. Then they went right back to being terrible after that game.
At number 9, and lost their coach, right? Yep.
Yeah, Mike Norvell.
At number 9, Middle Tennessee State. They lost to Austin Peay, who played who competitively, Jacob?
Georgia.
Middle Tennessee State drops 400 rating points, but they only lost a spot because they were already at the very bottom of all FBS teams.
They were already 135 at the time.
And Austin Peay kind of fell apart at the end of the year. Didn't even make the FCS playoffs.
Number 8, Wake Forest loses to Florida State 42-7. They lost 400 rating points and 34 spots in the rankings. Number 7, Eastern Michigan. They lost to Long Island 52-27. They lost 429 rating points. They lost 4 spots in the rankings.
Yeah, one of a handful of FCS losses that'll really do you in our rating system.
Number 6, Memphis's loss to UAB 31-24. Memphis lost 449 rating points and 42 spots.
What a collapse. I mean, I'm pretty sure before they lost, it was the first or second college football playoff rankings that came out. They had Memphis in as the proxy for the group of 5 team.
Yep, they were on track to be the playoff representative until they lost to UAB.
Number 5, East Carolina's lost to who, Jacob? UTSA 58-24. East Carolina lost 459 rating points and 41 spots because of what?
Crowd noise.
Southern Miss, number 4. Lost to Texas State 41-14. They lost 476 rating points, 40 spots in the rankings. We love the Southern Miss Golden Eagles this year.
Yeah, and this is when they fell from glory, and boy, did they fall.
And number 3, UMass lost to Bryant 27-26. They lost 486.7 rating points and dropped 22 spots. And number 2, San Jose State's lost to Nevada. They lost 576.9 rating points and 23 spots. And number 1 goes to Army with their loss against Tarleton State. They lost 595 rating points and 70 spots in the rankings. Now we move on to the largest single game increases at number 10, Fresno State again. This time on the increase. They beat Boise State 30-7. 269 rating points up 29 spots due to what, Jacob?
Crowd noise?
No, Boise State losing their quarterback, right? Hurt leg for the season. Utah dismantling no Sam Levitt in Arizona State, 42-10. Rating game gained 272 points in 23 spots. Number 8, Delaware beats FIU 38-16. They jumped 38 spots in the rankings.
It was a solid FIU team that we found out that they beat there. So this was a really great win for Delaware early on in the season to get the ball rolling.
It was actually one of 2 big wins in a row for them. The previous week, they beat UConn in overtime. That netted them over 200 points in 20 spots or so as well, putting them in the top 20 twice. But their second game against FIU was a much bigger win. Only their second win against an FBS team as an FBS team really sent them up as they started right near the bottom of the list. In fact, I believe they started 136.
At number 7, UTSA with the largest single game increase because of what, Jacob?
Crowd noise.
They go up 297 rating points in 30 spots. Number 6, UCLA's win against Penn State. They jumped 27 spots in the rankings and cost James Franklin his job. Number 5, Cincinnati beating Iowa State 38-30. This is when Iowa State had almost no one left that was healthy on their roster. Cincinnati jumped 22 spots in the rankings. At number 4, Colorado State. You guys called this out earlier with a head scratcher win against Fresno State 49-21. They jumped 27 spots. At number 3, UTSA. Here they are, Jacob. Why?
Crowd noise.
Versus Tulane 48-26. They go up 32 spots with that victory.
Man, that SND just loves UTSA.
Sure does. Texas at number 2 with their win against Vanderbilt jumped 18 spots and 358 rating points.
It's the win that every Oklahoma fan was dreading to see happen.
And at number 1, Texas State with their win against Southern Miss 41-14. They jumped 31 spots and 363 rating points.
Complete opposite stories here. Southern Miss ended the season on a losing streak. Texas State ends the season on a winning streak.
Teams that did not make the 50 but got so close we wanted to call it out. At number 10, Army. The closest they got was number 58. Average ranking in the S&D 50 this season, 91.
And Army's one of 2 teams on this list that the closest they got was also their final ranking.
Temple at 9. Highest rank, 57. Average, 84. The Casey Keeler Year 1 experiment, I'd say pretty good.
Look out for Temple next year.
Number 8, Rice. They got to 56. Average rank, 101. Number 7, Appalachian State. Got to 55. Average, 97. At number 6, Troy. Got to 55. Average rank, 72. And played in the Sun Belt title game. Number 5, Virginia Tech. They got to 54, average 96.
Virginia Tech's 54. You want to know what week they got that? That was their opening week. That's what they started at.
Never to see it again. At number 4, Louisiana. The closest they got was number 53. At number 3, Ohio. I'm so sorry, Lucas. The highest Ohio got was 52. And that's to end the season, right, Spencer?
Yeah, that's their final ranking.
Our second honorable mention for the 50 that we didn't mention last week. At number 2, Utah State also got as close as 52. Bronco Mendenhall's first year. And number 1, Miami of Ohio. The closest they got to the 50 was number 51.
Before you get into the teams that never left the 50, I just want to make a shout out here. We had 88 different teams make an appearance in the 50 at least once this year, but only 17 were in it every time.
And here they are: Georgia Tech, TCU, Illinois, Washington, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Miami, Missouri, BYU, Georgia, Vanderbilt, USC, Texas A&M, Indiana, Oregon, Ole Miss, and Ohio State. Now, what's shocking here is the low ranking. I cannot believe that Indiana hit a lower low in an undefeated season than Oregon did.
You want to know why they hit that low?
Because that's where they started out.
'Cause that's where they started out. Week
Am I
1.
right?
Yep, that is 100% right. Miami, their low 41. That's where they started the season. BYU, they actually got past, I should say. They opened up against Portland State, an FCS opponent, so they got past. It's similar to Texas Tech. Actually, the only reason Texas Tech is not on this list is because they also opened against an FCS foe. They started at 37, but got passed by playing an FCS team while some people played FBS opponents and got more points. They slipped down to 51. Notre Dame, another close miss here, slipped all the way to 54 after early losses in the season.
Here are the 10 most unimproved teams in 2025. That's right. You heard the title right. Most unimproved. At number 10, Oklahoma State, Jacob. They started the year at 76. They end the year at number 123.
Total rating loss of 847 points.
It started bad and it stayed bad.
At number 9, Bowling Green. Started at 114, ended at 130.
Eddie George is going to have his work cut out for him next season.
Number 8, Oregon State. Started 112, finished 131.
Ended with their head coach getting fired, bringing in a new regime.
Number 7, Charlotte. Started 101, ended 128. Number 6, Sam Houston State. Started 116 because Casey Keeler was there the year before. Ended the year at 132.
And they lost 956 rating points, just really couldn't string together good enough wins.
Number 5, Syracuse. Started at number 33. Ended at 121.
Not our lowest rated P4 team, but man, what could have been with them.
At number 4, UTEP.
At number 3, Georgia State. Started at number 95, finished at number 133 of 136. At number 2, San Jose State with a starting rank of 111, finishing second to last at number 135. And at number 1, you couldn't forget them because they held this spot nearly the whole season. Your UMass Minutemen started at number 90, but quickly fell to number 136 and kept that spot warm.
Here are the 10 most improved teams in 2025. At number 10, Miami. And keep in mind, we only marked through the regular season.
This is everything through conference championship weekend.
Increase in rating points of 759. Started at 41. At number 9, Texas A&M, up 771 rating points. Number 8, James Madison, up 806 rating points. Starting to see a trend, friends?
Well, get ready to break that trend.
7, Notre Dame, improved over a national championship appearing season the year before by 812 rating points to be snubbed out of the playoff.
Now, to be clear, we don't start teams next year where they finished this year. There are adjustments that go in, but from where they started this year, even though they were number 5, their number 8 finish was still 800 points higher than their number 5 start.
At number 6, Ole Miss, up 848 rating points. At number 5, Oregon, 889 rating points. At number 4, Utah, also up 889 rating points.
Where's the outlier here?
Number 3, Georgia, up 1,019 rating points. At number 2, Texas Tech, up 1,046 rating points. Holy deep pockets. And number 1, the most improved team of 2025, you know who it is. Google me, Indiana, up 1,141 points. Started the year at number 25, end the year at number 1.
You could take away their win against Ohio State in the conference championship game, and they still would have had the biggest rating point gain.
It's fitting that we recap the season and finish the whole show with Kurt Signetti.
If you were to add in the postseason, it'd reshuffle the list a little bit. Miami would jump up to number 2 because they got a bunch of points in the postseason. Then it would go Ole Miss, Georgia, Texas Tech, but it's a lot of the same teams.
All right, Jacob's crazy stats from this season. In the D2
This is what
playoffs,
the fans have been waiting for,
Yeah.
by the way. This is
Oh,
what
yeah.
our listeners want to hear.
If you've made it this far, you know you're a Jacob fan and you are chomping at the bit for these crazy stats.
if you are a D2 football fan, you saw history take place this year because in the first round of the playoffs, 7 unseeded teams won, setting a new record of unseeded teams advancing into the second round.
Now, is that only because they seed the home teams in the first round
Yes.
of the playoffs?
Yes. Now, let's get even more crazy. Sticking with some D2 ball, Western Carolina's Taron Dickens sets the new NCAA record for consecutive pass completions when he went 46 for 46 against Wofford. But to end the previous game, he had gone 4 for 4. So that meant he completed 50 consecutive passes, setting that record. The previous record was held by an East Carolina quarterback with 36. So he broke that record by 14.
Oof.
Wow. And the 325 yards, he's slinging it.
And my last crazy stat, moving up to the FBS, with 5 coaches fired in the SEC, meant that they spent $138.6 million in buyout money.
For just
Holy
the coaches
cow.
this year, this doesn't count Jimbo Fishers, or it does?
Nope, just this year, the 5 coaches that were fired this year, when you add all their buyouts together, you get almost $140 million.
Sheesh.
It just means more.
I had the thought the other day. I wonder what past coach buyouts amounts to as like a percent of the state's budget for public schools.
Ugh. Jacob, thank you for putting those together. The top 50 teams with the best transfer portal classes will be revealed Wednesday, February 11th. We will see you all in 2 weeks, and that should be pretty exciting because we will reveal which teams improved the most through the portal.
We have a postseason to preseason translation that goes on for our model. You know, Indiana doesn't get to start the year with all 6,660 rating points they had to finish this year. But figuring out how transfers impact that, how coaching hires impact that, that's something that we've already been able to sink our teeth into in the lead up to this season. And we're going to be even more in depth in the lead up to next season. So this is just your first taste of the analysis and player movement that we'll have for you to get you ready for when college football returns in August.
If you've made it this far in the show, thank you so much. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave us a comment, like the video. We appreciate all of you. Spencer, thank you for being here and doing all those graphics.
It was my pleasure.
Jacob, thank you for being here tonight. Can't thank you enough.
It's great to be here. Always great to talk to you, Andrew, and you as well, Spencer.
We hope you all have a fantastic couple weeks. We will see you Wednesday, February 11th.